In today's episode, I am talking all about Inbox Zero, what it actually is, why I do it, and how I make it work in a way that is simple and supports me rather than stresses me out and overwhelms me more. Because let's be honest, Inbox Zero is one of those things that can feel a bit Marmite, can't it? A lot of the time it's talked about in a way that makes you feel like you should be doing it, or like you're somehow behind or a complete mess of a human being if you are not. But that is not what this episode is about. This is about helping you figure out what actually works for you. And I am going to share why Inbox Zero has become a really important part of how I run my business, how it helps me manage the chaos of life and work, and the simple way I approach it without it taking over my day. So by the end of this episode, you will be able to decide whether Inbox Zero is something that could support you. And if it is, you'll have a really simple, realistic way to get started. But before we dive in, if you are new here, hi, I am your host, Becci. I am a multi-award winning business owner and the dreamer behind the Boss Your Socials Club. I created this podcast to help women like you simplify your life and grow a business on your terms without the overwhelm. So if you are ready for some no BS advice, practical tips and honest chats that make business and life feel lighter and more doable, you are in exactly the right place. Right then, let's get started with this week's episode. Before I get into today's episode, I just want to briefly explain what Inbox Zero is if you have never heard of it before. In essence, it is having no emails in your inbox, which sounds like the dream, right? But might sound completely undoable. Well, it's not. And I'm here to tell you why it's not and how you can do that today. But I also want to say a really important part of this, I think, is that when I say having no emails in your inbox, it makes it sound very perfect. And it's not about having a perfectly empty inbox at all times or replying to everything instantly. It is simply a way of managing your emails so they're not sitting there open and taking up space in your brain. So instead of leaving your emails unread or half dealt with, you are either replying, filing them somewhere they belong, adding anything important to your to-do list, or deleting them if they are no longer needed. It basically means that your inbox isn't acting as your memory bank and you're not constantly scanning it, trying to remember what you've done and what you haven't. And you're also not constantly looking at it and shutting it down immediately because it makes you feel really overwhelmed. I do think this is one of those topics that can feel really loaded because I think it's the kind of topic that you see people talking about or perhaps preaching about all over places like social media. And quite often it's framed in a way, like I said, that just feels a bit preachy. Like if you're not at Inbox Zero, you're disorganized and you one day can be just like the person telling you about it, or that somehow you need fixing or you need whatever system they're selling. And I just want to say from the start, that's absolutely not how I see it at all. And I'm not trying to sell you anything at all. I don't have a course on how to get to Inbox Zero. For me, Inbox Zero isn't about being perfect or about being super organized. It's not about being better than anyone else. It's simply about how my brain works and what helps me feel calmer, clearer, and able to actually get on with my work. Because here's the thing, I am not perfect or super organized in any way, shape or form. I live a pretty chaotic life and I have a very chaotic brain. I've got a business, I've got kids, I've got family life. There is always a lot going on and I know there will be for you too. I have made peace with that. It's what I call organized chaos and I am happy to live like that. But the important thing for me is that it's organized chaos, not just outright chaos. Because what I have learned through all the work I've done on myself and in understanding myself, my life and my brain is that there's a difference between life being chaotic and things feeling chaotic in my head. And emails are one of the things that can tip me over into that feeling really quickly. I don't know if you're like me, but if I open my inbox and there are a load of emails sitting there, even if it's not actually that many or any of them are that urgent, my brain immediately goes into overwhelm. I start telling myself that I'm behind, that there's loads to do, that everything's a bit of a mess, and I get really overwhelmed really quickly. When in reality, it's just a handful of emails, like I said, most of which probably aren't that urgent, but it doesn't feel like that to me. And it's not how my brain makes me feel when I see that. So for me, Inbox Zero is a way of keeping that feeling in check. It helps me stay in that organized chaos rather than tipping into the overwhelm and actual chaos. And that is why I do it. Not because I think everyone should, not because it's the right way, but because it genuinely helps me function better. And I think that's a really important thing to say, because if emails are sitting in your inbox and it doesn't bother you at all, if you've got your own system that works, and by works, I mean actually works, so you're responding to stuff, you're not missing stuff, it's not overwhelming you, then you do not need to force yourself into Inbox Zero. This is about what makes you more productive, not what looks good on paper. I'll be talking about that a lot, not what people tell you you should be doing. It's about what makes you more productive, and it's what what works for you and what makes you feel better. However, if you were just nodding along to everything I said just now about how my brain works and how it makes me feel, and you can totally relate, then let me tell you more about how I do it in a simple way to see if it's something that might help. Okay. Right. So let's get into the how I actually do it, because it is honestly much simpler than it might sound. This is something that I first learned years ago as a concept, and that's where the term inbox zero has come from for me. When I was employed, we had some training from a company called Productivity Ninja, and they shared loads of different ways to work more efficiently. Things like time blocking, which I also still swear by, various different routines, and inbox zero, amongst other things. Over time, I've taken bits of what I learned from that course, adapted it, and made it work for me. The biggest part of it is that I don't just try to stay on top of my emails, I actually build it into my day. So every day that I'm working, I have a start of the day routine in my calendar. It's blocked out time, usually about an hour to an hour and a half, and it includes a handful of small tasks that help me get set up for the day. There's quite a few different tasks in there, actually, of just habits that I build to make my business run smoothly for me. And one of those tasks is getting my inbox to zero. And actually, it's the one that takes up the biggest chunk of time. So I give myself about 30 minutes. It doesn't always take that, but I give myself 30 minutes in case it does take that, of that allocated time for it. Like I said, it often takes less, especially if I've been consistent with it. And what I do during that time is really straightforward. I go into my inbox and work through everything in a specific order. So the first thing I will do is open and scan through all the emails. I don't read them. I don't look at them. I just scan through them to see whether there's anything that I can delete that's completely irrelevant, whether that is newsletters I'm not reading, cold outreach, things I don't need. Sometimes it's notifications that a payment's been made or things like that, which is lovely, but I don't actually need to do anything with it. So the first thing I do is I open them all and I just scan them, and anything that I can delete straight away without doing anything with it gets deleted. That alone usually cuts things down quite quickly. And on a day-by-day basis, actually, that's the bulk of what I'm deleting. And then I have a handful of emails that I actually need to do something with. The next thing I do once I have deleted everything is unsubscribe from anything that I keep ignoring. So if I've deleted the same type of email multiple times without reading it, so if when I've done that first bit every day from X person, I've deleted their newsletter without reading it, then that is my sign that I don't need it in my inbox anymore. I'm not reading it. I'm deleting it straight away. So I unsubscribe. That is the next step. So first off is just straight delete. Second off is unsubscribe. After that, I reply to anything that I can respond to quickly. And this has been a big shift for me, because in the past, I'd leave emails sitting there for days, even when the reply would take me 2 minutes. Now, if it's quick, I just do it during the allocated time. So if it's a thanks for this or just something really quick, then I reply to it straight away. So that is the third thing I do. So I'm almost going through my inbox multiple times, but doing different things. Now, the deleting, the unsubscribing, and the really quick replies don't take very much time at all. Anything that needs more thought, I need to actually do something with before I can reply. I don't leave it sitting in my inbox. Now, like I said, at the start of the day, I tend to put half an hour in. So I might reply to it there if it's not going to take me out of that half an hour window. However, if I can't do that and I need to give it more thought, I turn it into a task. And I use Asana for pretty much everything in my business. So I will add it into Asana, but I am no affiliate of Asana. So whatever tool you use is best for you. Insert there. But I will add it into Asana. Importantly, I will set a day for when I actually need to deal with it and attach the email if I need to refer back to it. So if it's something I'm going to have to actually do some work on or reply to, I'm putting it into a time that I have space to do it. So sometimes I need to look at my calendar and actually put in 15 minutes to say, reply to X thing about whatever it might be. And this is a bit that has made the biggest difference for me, because what I used to do was leave those in my inbox as a reminder that I needed to deal with it. But actually what they did was just sat there taking up space in my head and silently taunting me for not having dealt with them. Honestly, every time I open my inbox, I'd see them again and think, I need to deal with that. And it just added to that feeling of overwhelm. I don't know if you can relate to that, whether your brain is the same as mine or different, but it spiraled me into just pure overwhelm. I don't think there's another way to describe it. Whereas now, once it's in Asana with a date on it, I don't have to think about it again until that day when I'm coming to work on it, because that's when I'll physically see it in my tasks. It's gone out of my head. I've allocated time to deal with it, and it will get done during that time. I don't have to think about it until that time comes. And that's really, for me, what Inbox Zero gives me. It's not about the inbox itself. It's about the mental space that it creates. I also do a quick check of my emails at the end of the day as well. Nothing major. And I tend not to reply to a lot of stuff there. I just like to see whether anything's come in through the day, because I will shut my emails down for the rest of the day so I'm not distracted about things coming in. And it's not necessarily all tasks where it's like, God, now I have to deal with that. Some of them are things that I get excited about and it distracts me from the thing that I was meant to be doing. And this is where I was talking earlier about time blocking. It brings me away from the time that I've blocked out to do the things that I said I would do. And then I fall back into feeling really behind. Whereas if I stick to this system, I don't. So at the end of the day, because I won't have looked at my emails all day, I just do a 10-minute scan to see if there's anything urgent or anything I want to reply to before the next day, or I sort of mentally prep myself for the next day as well. So generally, I'm checking my emails twice a day, but for a very short amount of time in the grand scheme of things. Once properly in the morning and then a lighter check-in in the evening. And what that means is people will usually get a response from me within one working day, and I am happy with that. They don't have to get a response from me instantly. They don't have to get a response from me the second they email me. And this is a boundary that is really important to me in my business, because it's another really important part of this. Inbox zero doesn't mean being constantly available. It doesn't mean replying straight away to everything. In fact, part of this for me has been unlearning that people-pleasing tendency, feeling like I have to reply immediately or people are going to be really disappointed, because I don't, and nor do you. Nothing is that deep or urgent unless we're actually saving lives, which, I'd put money on the fact that most of us aren't. It's not that deep. And if someone has an issue with that, that's actually a bit of a red flag for me. I run my business in a way that works for me. And part of that is having boundaries around my time and energy. And actually, alongside that, something I've done quite intentionally is manage expectations around my emails. So I have an out of office on, and I say that I properly check my emails once a week at the start of the week. This is on all the time. It changes when I actually go off on annual leave to say I'm actually off, but this is something people get every time they email me. And like I said, I check my emails once a week at the start of the week, because that's where I have the most time blocked in my diary to actually reply to stuff. Now, in reality, I do still check them twice a day, but by setting that expectation, I've created space for the fact that I might not always reply that same day. And a bit like the life is lifing buffer that I spoke about in the previous episode, I will link to it in the show notes. It gives me space for life to life, because life happens, things come up, and I'm not always going to be in a position to respond straight away. And I think that's the really important part, managing expectations in a way that supports you, not pressures you. Because honestly, if that doesn't work for someone, they are free to work with someone else. I'm self-employed. If you're listening to this, you're probably self-employed. And this is what works for me. And we get to decide what works for us. So you get to decide what works for you. I know that I'm efficient. I know I'm organized, and I know I offer really good customer service. So it's about being confident in that rather than overextending myself to feel like I need to prove it. So yeah, Inbox Zero helps me stay organized, but it also supports those boundaries, because I'm the one deciding when I check and respond to emails. And this really came into practice for me recently. Day by day, I don't get that many emails. You might get lots of emails and maybe need the system even more. I don't get lots of emails. But what actually sparked this episode was because I'd taken 2 weeks off for the Easter holidays. And I thought, you know what? I'm actually going to look at how long it takes me to get my inbox back to zero after the Easter holidays. So I've had 2 weeks off. So during that time, I had 164 emails come through, and it took me, I think it was 57 minutes. It was just under an hour to get my inbox back to zero. And it was by doing that exact process that I just spoke about. First off, going through and deleting everything that's not relevant, then going in and unsubscribing from things, and going through the process step by step, putting things into tasks and doing everything I said. And it took me 57 minutes, which is longer than obviously it takes me on a day-by-day basis. Like I said, I have half an hour in for it, but often it will take me 10, 15 minutes on a day-by-day basis. But after the Easter holidays, to get my emails from 164 down to zero, it was the very first thing I did when I sat at my desk, because straight away I was like, I need to clear these. And I have very strong boundaries about not checking my emails when I'm off. Like, I take emails off my phone and everything. So I knew I was going to come back to a lot of emails. I will be honest, a huge chunk of that was things that I could delete straight away. So that probably halved it instantly. There was also a lot of unsubscribing, because when you go through your inbox and you haven't looked at it for 2 weeks, you realize just how many things from people that you don't read. So there was a lot of unsubscribing. There was actually very few that needed real, thoughtful, proper replies. I think there might have even been like a handful of them. Lots of them needed quick replies and things like that. But yeah, it took me 57 minutes. So it really shows that because I'd stayed on top of the inbox zero day by day before the Easter holidays and how I work, when I came back, it was super quick and easy to get back on top of things and to not feel overwhelmed. I do want to touch briefly on organizing emails into folders, because this often comes up when I speak about inbox zero. I do use them, but I don't use them loads. So I know loads of people will tell you rules that you can set up on things like Google, where it instantly takes your newsletters into a certain folder, which is great if that works for you. For me, it doesn't. It just doesn't. If it goes into a folder, I don't look at it again. So all that happens is that I never end up unsubscribing from anything or deleting it, because I just don't look at that folder. So for me, folders are mainly for things I might need to refer back to, like invoices, important documents, or client-related emails that I don't really ever need to look at again, but I might just need to refer back to in the future. If something needs action, it doesn't live in a folder, it becomes a task. Because like I said earlier, I know that if I just file it away, I'll forget about it, or I will file it away in a folder and mark them all as unread, and I will still see that. I'm going to pluck a random number out the air, but I will still see that number 87 sitting there and going, oh my God, I've got 87 emails to reply to. If something needs action, it doesn't live in a folder, it becomes a task, because I don't want to forget about it. And it doesn't actually take the overwhelm if it's just sat there unread in a different folder. Again, this is where it comes back to what works for you. I am not saying folders are wrong. I am not saying using those rules are wrong. They do really work for some people, but I feel like for a lot of people, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, I'll set this rule up and I'll make myself less overwhelmed. And basically you've just got stuff going off in different directions, and it doesn't actually work to reduce the overwhelm. It's just something that maybe looks good on paper or looks like a good tip on social media. Not for everyone. I know it works for some people, but I speak to a lot of people where it doesn't. And I am definitely one of those people. And it's one of those times as well where you're not doing what everyone else is saying is what works, or you are doing something where you're like, yeah, I've heard this advice, it sounds really great, I'm going to do this thing. Oh my God, why am I still so overwhelmed? For me, having this system was about actually taking over the overwhelm, not just about saying, I do this thing and isn't it great? So it's where it comes back to what works for you. I will say that in a lot of episodes. I've already said that in this episode. Some people love folders and have really detailed systems. Others leave things unread as reminders. Like I said, for me, both of those approaches create more mental noise and more overwhelm. So I have built a system that I've explained in this episode that keeps things as simple and clear as possible, because that is what I'm all about. That is what I want most from my life, for it to be simple, clear, calm and happy. And honestly, that's the biggest takeaway from this whole episode. Inbox zero isn't about having a perfect system. It's about creating something that supports your brain, your business and your life. For me, it massively reduces overwhelm. It helps me stay on top of things, and it frees up mental space so I can focus on what actually matters. And I think that's shown in what I achieve through when I set goals for myself and I achieve the goals, because I've given myself that mental space to be able to do it. So I know that it works for me. But if that looks different for you, that is absolutely fine. The goal isn't inbox zero. The goal is feeling in control, clear, and supported in how you run your business. If you enjoyed this episode or found it useful, or you're going to go away and implement some of the tips that I suggested, I would really appreciate it if you could take a couple of minutes to leave a review on your preferred podcast platform. It makes such a difference in helping more people find the podcast. And if this episode made you think about your own systems or how you manage your time and energy, I would really, really genuinely love to hear from you. Come and send me a message or share it on your stories and tag me. And in the meantime, I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am truly grateful for your time and energy today. I know you've got a million things on your plate, and the fact that you are here investing your time into something that will help yourself, your business, and your socials grow is something I am really proud of you for. Before you go though, if you love this podcast and you're a woman running a small business who wants to make social media easier and business life less lonely, I've got something for you. The Boss Your Socials Club is here to bring you inspiration, accountability, confidence, and community. It's a place where we ban the word should, because we believe in bespoke advice that will work for you, your stage of life, and your business. As a member, you'll get a clear content plan every month, ready-to-use templates, and the accountability to actually show up. Plus, you'll have expert support and a community of incredible women who get it and who want to cheer you on and support you in your business journey. Think of it like having a teeny tiny social media marketing expert in your pocket, giving you the knowledge and the assurance when it comes to posting great, engaging content on your social media platforms and showing up in a way that grows your business without the overwhelm. Whether you're just getting started or looking to take your social media to the next level, Boss Your Socials Club has everything you need. You can join from just £14 a month or save with an annual membership. The link is in the show notes. Thank you again for being here today, and I can't wait to catch you in the next episode. Until then, take care and keep showing up.